So what are we going to talk about today in our second
So
segment?
second segment. So we've got a really good guest on today, and we're going to be talking about pests, seasonal pests. And it's interesting because this is the time of season when we really want to get ahead of pests that might be coming out, and what's a significant one, and what's one that maybe we don't have to have so much concerns about. So we've brought on today Michael, and Michael is with Safe Haven Homes. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks
on,
for
Michael.
having
Appreciate
me,
it.
Weston. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you got in the business and a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in the business,
Okay.
third generation, and my great uncle started it back in 1955.
Really?
My parents bought it from them in the 70s, and so here I am.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we've kind of put together a list of the seasonal items or pests that we want to kind of address. And I guess one of the big ones that we're all going to kind of be listing for are termites, because it's one of those situations where there is a high fear factor. There's a lot of unknown because we don't always see them, except really at this time of the year. And we really want to get ahead of any type of damage that they could be doing. So tell us a little bit about your take on the whole termite situation.
Well, first of all, so termites right now are swarming, and it is one of the few times of the year where you will actually see them be very visible. Termites are very good at staying hidden inside the walls.
Uh-huh.
But this time of year, what happens is when the colony gets large enough, they will actually swarm out with the males and females to go make new colonies. And so it's a good opportunity for them to actually let us know that, hey, we're here and we're eating your home.
Yes.
And if that didn't happen, a lot of times homeowners would go sometimes years without ever realizing they have an active infestation.
And I think that when you and I were talking before the show, you were talking about how at certain bait stations that you can tell if you've actually killed the colony because of what's left at the bait station, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that happens is when the colony is actually sitting there consuming the bait. We use a Centricon termite baiting system. The workers consume the bait and then they take it back to the colony. And what happens is once they all die, well, the only members that are really left are the soldiers. They're last to die, and they will all go to that bait and end up stuck on that bait. So it's a good indicator for us to let us know that we've actually taken the colony out.
That's one of those things, because you think that if you see them there, you're like, oh my gosh. But you're saying that if you do see them in this situation, that it's a good indicator that you've gotten the colony. And
that's right.
And by getting the colony, because I always thought that, we see Roundup and we see weed killers and we spray it on there and we want it to die immediately. But when we were talking, you were telling me that that's actually counterproductive to actually getting rid of these.
Yeah, when you're trying to deal with social insects like ants and termites, they're colonies. And so what you have to do is not worry about killing a few termites or ants. You got to actually take out the whole colony. And so you want a product like the Centricon that is slower acting, allows them to take it, consume the bait, take it back to the colony, and then it actually kills out the whole colony. So now they're no longer a threat to the home.
That makes sense. And so if someone sees an insect colony swarming, what should they do?
Best thing to do is not to do anything.
Okay.
A lot of people have a tendency to run and go get their Raid or some other hairspray or whatever and start killing them. They really want to call a professional, because termites are something you just can't deal with as a homeowner.
With Raid.
With Raid, certainly with that, right? with Raid. Because that is actually an opportunity for us to put in what we call an above ground station on that swarm castle, and they can start taking that bait immediately, and we can actually get a lot quicker control if we take advantage of that situation. But if they go and spray it and kill some of the termites that are coming out, then we've lost that opportunity. There's certainly a lot of other things that we can do, but it's best to go ahead and just pick up the phone and call.
I like that. So it is not to get Raid and spray it on there, or hairspray, as you put it.
Not at all.
But it's actually to call them so that they can properly get the colony, not just the ones that you can see buzzing around.
It may make them feel better to kill a few termites, but it's not doing anything to
It
solve
doesn't
the
do
problem.
any good.
Not at all.
So one of the things too that we also notice is that when it comes to a home inspection, we have a wood destroying insect report done, and on that report we get indicators for carpenter ants at times. And a lot of times people will get what we're going to talk about, the carpenter ant and a termite, confused because I think they're similar in the way that they swarm. And they're small and they have wings at times. So what do we need to know that is the difference besides calling you and having a professional opinion?
So carpenter ants are pretty identifiable in that they are very distinguishable as an ant, and they're a large ant and they're red and black, at least the ones that we typically see in Dallas. They do also come in black, but red and black are the most common, and they do swarm usually earlier than the termites, and so a lot of times we'll start to see them in February and March.
Okay.
Much earlier than we start to see the termites.
Interesting that they come out before that. Okay. All right. Carpenter ants, do they create similar type of damage as is a termite, or is it maybe less because they're an ant and we think ants are friendlier?
They are wood destroying insect and do need to be dealt with, but they are not near as destructive as termites. Termites are a $5 billion a year damage causer, more than all natural disasters put together.
Oh, wow.
And it's not covered by homeowners insurance, right? Whereas carpenter ants, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you were saying termites were a 10, then you would say carpenter ants are probably more like a 5 or a 6.
Okay.
Certainly something that should be dealt with, but not necessarily to the extreme that termites are.
So would you typically, so if I'm looking at my counter or you're outside and you're on your patio and you see the ant run by, that's not the carpenter ant that you're talking about.
It's possible, but typically a carpenter ant are going to be elevated. They're going to be running along the eaves and up trees, and they're arboreal more, so they're coming from the trees and then invading the home. So one of the things that homeowners can do to reduce their risk is cut back trees and shrubs so that they're not touching the house.
And one of the things that y'all have, is it quarterly or is it monthly that y'all come out and service people's houses?
We do on a quarterly and then an every other month basis. Those are our two most popular.
That's awesome. And so the products, just because I know that everybody's concerned about this, but the products that you guys use, is the term child and pets friendly or safe?
So we don't use the term safe, right?
Okay.
Because everything in the salt is dangerous at certain levels. But the margin of safety that the products that we use today are really off the charts, low toxic. And if someone really is concerned about it, we can use green products or low impact products. So that's not a problem. We do a lot of schools, public schools, private schools. And so that's really a good niche that's what we do a lot of work in.
So that's a good thing, because I know that so many times people are concerned just about like off-gassing or about a pet maybe getting into it. And I think that it really helps everyone to know that the products that you're using are what you're using in large groups of kids. So like at a school and whatnot. So
correct.
That's helpful.
Yeah, the products don't have any odors. They don't off gas. They're just the technology today and the chemistry is really impressive.
Yep. Well, good. One of the things also that we're going to talk about as far as the critters, and these are more summertime, and they're the ones that bug me to death. These are mosquitoes. And so I feel like this was a really interesting one because mosquitoes, I feel like, have a higher fear factor, given the fact that in the last couple of years, Dallas has really been a hot zone for West Nile. And then last year, so many people were talking about Zika in Mexico. And it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, what is fear and what is fact? And help us determine, how do we handle them? And what do you guys do to get ahead of this?
So mosquitoes really are a real health concern, right? They are vectors of West Nile. Dallas is like number one in the country for West Nile. Zika is a concern as well. So, and there's a number of other diseases. It's not just those two. So, a lot of pests that we deal with, they're nuisance, right? Now, termites obviously are destructive, but mosquitoes are not only a nuisance, but they're really a health concern. Some of the things that a homeowner wants to do to start reducing their risk is look for areas where they're breeding sites, right? The bird baths, the gutters that aren't flowing. One of the problems with Dallas and why we have such a struggle here is we have so many in-ground drains, the French drains, right? And all of those drain systems are just really good breeding sites for mosquitoes because it holds so much water and humidity level. So it's a perfect breeding site for them.
And I think that was one of the things, because I had always understood that they would be like in stagnant water. So I was always look for any type of pot or, like you said, a bird bath, and make sure that it was turned up. But I had never thought about the drains that run around lateral in the house, because we see them all the time. And irrigation companies and sprinkler systems, they're always encouraging you to drain away and let us put this French drain in. So if that's the case, and if that's something that somebody has, and they contacted you and said, Michael, help us out with this. What are you going to do to help them eliminate and decrease this?
So we have a couple of tools. There's a great product tool that we use called the Into Care. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did some fantastic research, and they're helping third world countries with these devices to reduce the malaria threat. And so we place a couple of them out on a typical home, and mosquitoes fly in, they get the product on them, they lay their eggs, but the eggs won't hatch into biting adults. And then they take that active ingredient and they're able to move that product to all these other breeding sites. So it starts making a fantastic impact of reducing the mosquito breeding sites around your home or on other properties. So doing that, and then the yard sprays that we do reduce the harboring areas. So the mosquitoes aren't hanging out in your yard and the foliage and underneath your patio. And then one of the other things we do is flush those drains that we were talking about earlier, so that we're taking that breeding site and that harborage away from them. So that is really huge.
So you've actually taken away their ability to larvae to actually convert into adult, and you're reducing the how good the environment is. And I think when we were talking before the show, you commented about that mosquitoes are not good flyers.
Right.
And that surprised me, because for some reason I felt like they can always find me. So I felt like they were pretty good flyers, but you had a really quick, easy kind of way to like control them a little bit.
Yeah, so airflow is one of the best tools that we can use. A ceiling fan on your patio is great. But that pushes air from above, right? But if you can get some cross ventilation going, a nice box fan or something like that that's blowing across at leg level, then you can really push a lot of the mosquitoes out, because they don't handle wind very well.
You can bet I am going to have a cross breeze blowing on my patio this year, because that to me was just revolutionary, aside from the other product, but it's a good one. We're going to move into our last kind of pest thing, and this is about rodents. And we have seen rodent notes written in many of our inspection reports right now. It's kind of like a little unnerving. I don't want to say it's a big thing, but I say homebuyers need to be aware of that, whether you're living in your house for 30 years or you're buying a house that someone's lived in for 30 years.
Some of it is our homes are getting a lot older, and so you have the history there, and you're just getting an accumulation or a buildup of some rodent activity. But without question, the rodent infestation in Dallas has really kind of gotten off the charts. The distributors tell us that the amount of rodent bait that's being sold in the Metroplex is like not just doubled, but quadrupled over the last 4 years. So that in itself is a really good indicator that we are just dealing with a lot more rats than what we used to. Just a lot of theories. Nobody really necessarily understands why, but it is a fact of life that we need to be aware of, and we need to, as homeowners, be concerned about it, because there are sanitation issues. There's a lot of diseases they carry, but they also chew on wires. They're very destructive. If it's not wires, it's going to be plumbing, especially with the new construction these days. They use PEX plumbing pipe, right? It's a plastic, and the rats can chew through that material fairly easily, and so you get water damage occurring. So if it's not fire damage, it's water damage, and then sanitation. There's just so many reasons why you should have your attic or crawl space inspected.
Interesting. So if you were saying, even if you haven't seen rodents in your house, it is something to actually bait for or plan for to get rid of. Is that right?
Prevention is really good. With What you really want to do is do a thorough inspection of the home and making sure that they're closed up, that you don't have kind of the common places where they will get in is if it's a pier and beam, it'll be the ventilation for the pier and beam.
Right.
Those are common places where you get breakthrough. On the roof returns, where you have a soffit and the roof comes back into line, those don't usually match up very well.
Right.
And so those are active places. Gable vents at the end of the roof are very common. So there's a number of these, half dozen places where rodents very commonly get into a house that we can inspect. And that's the solution, right? Is to not just kill them, but eliminate them and keep them from happening, coming into the home down the road.
Prevent their highways and prevent their holes from coming in and
That's
out.
right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we've done 4 of the critters, and I'm sure there's several others. We wanted to just give Michael this opportunity to come on the show. He came into our office and did such a great job. He's actually signed up with Zarly as well. So if this is something that you're interested in, I think that almost any homeowner would be interested in taking care of their house in this format. Please give Michael a call. His information will be in the comments below. So if you want to actually go ahead and reach out to him, that would be great. But we want to say thanks so much for having us on the show.
Thanks to you and Jeff for having me. I've really enjoyed this. This is great.
Well, we'll have you back on in the fall when it comes time to winterizing your house and getting ready to make
Fantastic.
sure that you don't have anybody else in there.
Great.
So, well, that is a wrap for today's segment. I feel like we have covered the houses from East Dallas all the way up to Bedford today.
Yeah, it was a road trip.
It was a road trip, and then we got some really good information about how to handle the pests in your house. So thank y'all so much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you for tuning in today. We'll have a variety of ways we'd love for you to reach out to us, certainly through our Facebook page where this is streaming right now. You can also go to our Instagram account where we've got pictures of our houses, and we kind of keep you up to date with other things that you might want to be aware of that pertain to real estate. You can also visit our website at updikepugh.com where there's a lot of detailed information about buying and selling a home, getting a home estimate, creating a market report. And then if you have a home that you want to get a value on, go to homeprice.fyi, put your address in, just a couple other pieces of info, and you'll instantly get a value on your home. Certainly give us a call, email us. We'd love to talk to you.
Thanks so much, you guys. And remember, we want to be your realtors for life.